So now let's begin with the second part of occlusion. Yeah, let's move on. Now we have finished with the mixed dentation period and now we will be dealing with the permanent dentation. So before moving on, let's see what is the alignment of permanent teeth in dental arch. Yes. Now you can see from this diagram it's very clear that the anterior and the posterior tooth, okay, in the mandibular arch, anterior and the posterior teeth, they have a mesial angulation. It means they are mesially tilted. You can see it's having it's falling a bit mesially, isn't it? And not only that, the second and third molars, and third molar is not shown in this diagram, but the second and third molars, they are more inclined than the premolars. Can you see it? You can appreciate that from the root side. You can well clearly observe. See, they are having more mesial angulation than the second and than the premolars, isn't it? Now moving on to the maxillary arch, you can see the anterior teeth mesially and posterior teeth are distally inclined. See, anterior teeth coming out. It's like coming, it's going to come out. But the posterior teeth, see, they are going distally. They are going backwards. Can you see this? Yes. So this is the alignment of permanent teeth in a dental arch. Next, let's see about the plane of occlusion. What do you mean by the plane of occlusion? See, we are drawing a line along the buccal cusp tips and the incisal edges of the mandibular teeth, and it's a curved line as you can see. And then we are broadening this curved line to include the lingual cusps. Can you see those? We are including the lingual cusps. And not only that, we got an occlusal table now, okay, on the occlusal surface. And not only that, then we extend it to the opposite side. Can you see? We are extending it to the opposite sides. So this forms the plane of occlusion. This is what we call it as the plane of occlusion. Now let's see what are the compensating curves. So we have anteroposterior compensating curves and lateral compensating curves. First, let's see what is anteroposterior. And in that we have curve of Spee. Curve of Spee means what? It is the curvature that is beginning from the cusp tip of lower canine following the buccal cusp tips of the premolars, molars, and it continues to the anterior border of the ramus. You can see my red laser cursor, isn't it? Yes, from the lower tip of lower canine, buccal cusp tips, premolars, and then goes up towards the anterior border of the ramus of mandible. That is called as the curve of Spee. Now in mandible it is concave and in maxillary arch it is convex in shape. Next we have the lateral compensating curves, and among that we have the Wilson's curve. So what is Wilson's curve? Yes, it is the line drawn through, this is the buccal surface, a line drawn through the buccal surface, buccal cusp tip and the lingual cusp tip of both the right and the left side. So when you join it, you will get a Wilson's curve, that is the buccal cusp tip and the lingual cusp tip, joining both together on one side and then joining that with the other side's lingual cusp tip and the buccal cusp tip. So you get the Wilson's curve, and you can see from the diagram in mandibular arch it is concave, and now if you draw in the maxillary arch you will get something like this. It means it's convex in maxillary arch. Now let's move on to the occlusal relationship between maxillary and mandibular posterior teeth. Okay, so to learn about the occlusal relationship, you need to learn a very confusing three terms, that is the centric relation, centric occlusion and maximum intercuspation. So centric relation and centric occlusion is a bit confusing, but let us go through it. Okay, centric relation means what? It means, see, this is the mandible, isn't it? It is a condyle part of mandible, and you can see this is the glenoid fossa or the mandibular fossa which is present on the skull. Okay, that much part is clear, and we have a TMJ disc. Now, centric relation means the position of the condyle are in the uppermost and in the midmost position of the mandibular fossa. You can see the mandibular fossa. It is in the most upward and the almost in the midmost position of the glenoid fossa. And this position is irrespective of tooth position. It means the tooth is not clenched or it's not in an occluded manner. Okay, we don't bite the tooth in this position. This is the most relaxed position for the condyles. Now, what do you mean by centric occlusion? Centric occlusion means without disturbing this the mandible at centric relation, we occlude the tooth. So, occlusion of opposing teeth when the mandible is at centric relation is called as centric occlusion. Now, this may or may not coincide with maximum intercuspation. We are just closing our just biting, not very hard or not with maximum intercuspation, but just slowly we clench our tooth. Okay, that is the centric occlusion. Maximum intercuspation means we are completely occluding the maxillary and the mandibular arch tooths together, and this is independent of any condylar positions. You can't say that in maxillary intercuspation the condyle is in centric relation because we are using force over here to cusp or to occlude our both the arch together. So now we will learn about the supporting cusps, or it's also called as the centric cusps, functional cusps, or the stamp cusps. So yeah, now just follow the color coding. Now in maxillary arch, the supporting cusp or the centric cusp is being given by the blue dots. Okay, you just follow these blue dots. And in mandibular arch, the functional cusps are being given by the red dots. Now let's see how it falls. So if you're saying with the blue dots, let's start with the maxilla itself. The palatal cusps are called the functional cusp. Why they are called? Because when we bite or when we occlude, these palatal cusp will fall into the buccal, sorry, not buccal, it falls into the central fossa of the mandibular tooth. Okay, so it means it brought a tight contact, it isn't it? So we get a tearing, we can tear or you can chew, or that is the centric position actually. Okay, so that means the palatal cusp will fall into the central fossa of the mandibular arch, and the buccal cusp of the mandibular arch will fall into the central fossa of the maxillary arch. So here the palatal cusps of maxillary arch are said to be the functional cusp, and in mandible the functional cusps are the buccal cusps of the mandibular posterior teeth. Okay, now you can see when these will contact in the central fossa, these cusps are broad and also mini rounded. They are not sharp because they are always in function. They take part in function like chewing function. Even when you're talking, sometimes it gets into the, they are functional, so they have broad mid-rounded surface. Okay, so let's see what is the guiding or non-centric or non-functional cusps look like. Yes, now it is just same, the opposite of the other one. Now you can see here also, yeah, buccal cusps of the maxillary posteriors and the lingual cusps of the mandibular posteriors will form the non-functional cusps. Now these cusps, you can say they are more sharper, isn't it? Now only look at the green spots, don't look at the red spots. Red spots were from the previous diagram, so just ignore those. Only the green dots, you just follow the green dots. Now these non-functional cusps, they are called as guiding. Why? Because they give mandible, they make the mandible more stable. Okay, and they form a tight definite occlusal relation. When you clench your tooth, okay, just have a bite, you just bite both the tooth together, that time it forms an occlusal relation. Who? These non-functional cusps. Therefore they are called as the guiding cusps also, and they are mostly sharp because they don't take part in any of the functions like chewing or any of the grinding procedures. They don't take part, so their cusp tips are almost sharp. Okay, so now let's learn about the mesiodistal occlusal contact relationship. It's actually simple. Now see, there when the functional cusp, now we know what is functional cusp, isn't it? That is the palatal cusp of maxillary tooth and buccal cusp of the mandibular tooth. Don't get confused. If you get any confusion, just try. You just occlude yourself and check which cusp is free on either side. That time you can understand which is the functional cusps in both the arches. So now mesiodistal occlusal contact relationship means there are two types. One is the central fossa relation and the other one is the marginal ridge and embrasure. Now central fossa relationship means you can see when the tooth occludes, okay, it gets contact on the central fossa, just on the central fossa, and the other parts remain free. They are not attached. I mean, they are not in contact. Only the tooth will contact the central fossa. That is the central fossa occlusal contact. Next one is the marginal ridge and embrasure. Now, in the other case is that when you occlude, what happens? They are occluding on the marginal ridges. Can you see? These are the marginal ridges of the tooth, isn't it? And not only that, also onto the embrasure area. Now, if I'm very bad in graphics, okay, so please adjust with me. Please forgive me for that. Now, this is the embrasure area of the adjacent tooth. So here it means a single tooth is in contact with actually two tooth. So you can call it as one tooth to two teeth relation. Okay, one tooth to two teeth relation. But here you can call it as one tooth to a single tooth relation. Here only one tooth is in contact with one tooth. But here what happens? When you occlude, this tooth is in contact with both the tooth. Okay, so that is what called as the mesiodistal occlusal contact relationship. Now let's see what is postural position or physiologic rest position. Yes, it means rest, isn't it? So it means the teeth are not in contact, our lips are apart and our jaws are relaxed. If our jaws are relaxed, obviously we have a gravitational force everywhere on this earth, isn't it? That time what happens? It will pull it down, but in order to maintain it in a rest position, we have something additional. Yes, it's our masticatory muscles, and at this time they will be in a mild state of contraction. But this rest position is not constant actually, because if we lie down or if we move our head, this position may vary. Now, at this position, when the jaws are relaxed, when the tooth is not in contact, and when the lips are apart, there will be a slight space between the maxillary teeth and the mandibular teeth when mandible is in a postural position, and that space is called as the freeway space. And approximately the freeway space will range between 0 to 3 mm with an average of 1.7 mm in an adult individual. Okay, that is called as the postural position. Okay, now let's see the common occlusal relationships of the posterior teeth, and this is purely in permanent teeth. Okay, deciduous teeth, we do not use this, we only use the terminal planes, Boehm's classification. And in permanent teeth, we use the Angles classification, and the key teeth of this classification is the permanent first molars. So let's move on. It's quite easy actually. Yeah, I'm a very bad drawer, you can see from this. Okay, anyways, we have the first, that is a class 1 relation. In class 1 relation, see what happens is, look at my laser cursor, you can see this is the first permanent molar. Okay, the mesiobuccal cusp, this is the mesial and it's the buccal cusp of maxillary first molar, is aligned directly over the mesiobuccal groove of the mandibular first molar. Mesiobuccal cusp of the maxillary first molar is aligned over the mesiobuccal groove of the mandibular first molar, and that is the class 1 relation, and almost most of the people have class 1 molar relation, and it is supposed to be the normal relation. Next we have the class 2 relation. Now in class 2 relation, again look at my laser cursor, you can see that it is the mesiobuccal cusp of the maxillary first molar is aligned directly over the embrasure area between the mandibular second premolar and the mandibular first molar. Okay, or you can say another classification, another way you can define it as like the distobuccal cusp of the maxillary first molar lies over the mesiobuccal groove of the mandibular first molar. Now this definition is actually same as that of class 1 relation. In class 1 it was the mesiobuccal cusp. When it comes to class 2, it becomes the distobuccal cusp of the maxillary first molar. The rest will be the same. And in this class 2 relation, what happens, you can see in this diagram, the mandibular arch is small and it is a bit posteriorly positioned. It means it is a bit backward position, isn't it? You can see the previous one, it was tip on tip. Here it was. Actually, I redrawed and I rubbed off. So you can see this is the class 1 relation, and it is from class 1, it's a bit backwardly positioned in class 2. Now next we have the class 3 relation, and in this case what happens, you can see, again look on my cursor, the mesiobuccal cusp of the maxillary first molar is aligned over the embrasure between the mandibular first and mandibular second molar. Okay, now this is due to the overgrowth of the mandibular arch, you can say, or you can say the maxilla have been restricted its growth. It can be either. Usually it is due to the overgrowth of the mandibular arch. Okay, and this people will have protruded jaw, and sometimes we say they are prognathic. Okay, that is class 3 relation. Now let's see about the anterior teeth. Now just now we saw about the posterior teeth. Now for anterior teeth we have the overjet and overbite, isn't it? So the first one is the overjet. Overjet means what? You can remember, like a jet. Jet will always fly how? Horizontally, isn't it? The jet. So like that you can remember, overjet means it is the horizontal overlap of the maxillary anterior teeth or the incisors over the mandibular anterior teeth. It is a horizontal overlap. Okay, now it is approximately 2 to 4 mm. And how do you measure it? Yes, it is measured from the labial surface of the mandibular incisors to the midpoint of the incisal edge of the maxillary incisors. Okay, is it clear? It is approximately 2 to 4 mm. Next we have the overbite. Overbite means what? It is the vertical overlap. Okay, how you vertical overlap? Now this incisor, it falls like this. Now even you can see in the mirror, when you smile, you cannot see half of your lower incisors. It is because of what? Because of the overbite or the overlap of the maxillary incisors. So overbite means vertical overlap of maxillary anterior teeth over the mandibular anterior teeth, and approximately you have the overbite is almost 3 to 4 mm. Now how do you measure? Yes, you will draw a line from the incisal edge of the mandibular center. Now this is the incisal edge of mandibular central incisors to a point on the labial aspect of the maxillary incisors. Okay, one line is drawn, and also a similar horizontal line from the maxillary incisors mesial edge to some point on the mandibular incisors. So this will show you the overlap, how much overlap is present. Okay, one from here and one from here. So what happens? You will get your overbite. So next we have the theories of occlusion. In that comes the Bournville theory or the theory of equilateral triangle. Now see, according to this, they say that the teeth will move in relation to each other as guided by the condylar and incisal guidance. Now the condyle as well as the incisal, with the condylar and the incisal guidance. Okay, the teeth will move. Now also the Bournville theory says that the distance between the condyle, these two condyle, will be equal to the distance between the two condyles and a point, that is a midpoint of the mandibular incisors. Okay, so between these two condyle it's same, and from this condyle to this central position and from this condyle to this central position, it forms an equilateral triangle, and that's why it is also called as the theory of equilateral triangle. And the length of each equilateral triangle's arm is approximately 4 inches, it seems. Now what did this Munson guy do? He used this Bournville's triangle and he proposed a theory, that is a spherical theory. Okay, and he said that there existed a sphere of radius 4 inch, sphere with radius 4 inch, and you can see the center, isn't it? And the center was equal distant from the occlusal surface of the posterior teeth and also from the center of condyle. It was at an equal distance, it seems, and that was the sphere of Munson. Now what is curve of Munson? Now curve of Munson means it is an ideal curve of occlusion actually, and in this curve of Munson, the each cusp tip, okay, you can see here the green line, partially blue is also present. Okay, the each cusp tips and the incisal edges will touch the surface of an imaginary sphere of 8-inch diameter. Okay, diameter, it means 4-inch radius itself. Now this curve of Wilson and curve of Spee will form a portion in this curve of Munson too, because see, if it has to form a sphere, you can see this is the sphere. Now if you consider this as like this a sphere, then there is what all are present? There is curve of Spee and also there is curve of Wilson too, isn't it? So it incorporates both the curve of Wilson and curve of Spee into the curve of Munson. Next we have the conical theory. Now in this conical theory, it was proposed by R.E. Hall. Now he says that when the lower teeth move over the surface of the upper teeth, you can see the lower teeth and you can see here the upper teeth. Now when this lower teeth will move over the upper teeth, when it's moving, okay, when we are protruding, when you are bringing your teeth forward, what happens? He says that it looks like the surface of a cone. Okay, it looks like a surface of a cone which generates an angle of 45 degree with the central axis of the cone, and the central axis is tipped towards the occlusal plane. Now this is the occlusal plane. Now it forms a 45 degree with the central axis of the cone, and that is tipped towards the occlusal plane. Can you understand? Yes, and that is called as the conical theory, and it was proposed by R.E. Hall. Yes, now we have the spherical theory, which we have said before. That is, when the lower teeth glide over the upper teeth, what happens? It forms a sphere of 8-inch diameter, isn't it? And not only that, it includes, or it the sphere will pass through the, you can see it passes through the glenoid fossa along with the articular eminences. Okay, this is a sphere, this is a spherical theory. Now the center of sphere, where will be the center of sphere located? It is located in the region of glabella. You all know where is glabella, isn't it? It is between the eyebrows. Between our two eyebrows there is a anatomical landmark, that is the glabella. So that is the spherical theory. So now we completed the topic, and you have to do 3 things. Do subscribe our channel and comment us the topics that you need at the earliest. And also if you find it beneficial, please do share with your friends and like if you like the video. Thank you so much and have a good day ahead.